The deep Stone Crypt has been cracked open and it's all our fault. Yada, yada, yada. You want to know what weapons you need to take in for this raid? Let me tell you. What are the weapons you should take through this raid if it's your first time? Well, since this is a first timer's guide, I will not be adding the raid weapons into this list because, first timers don't have weapons from the raid. Also, I'm not doing any heavy number crunching. This guide is more for people who ask the question of, what do I need to bring, as opposed to, what deals the most damage? If you want to find out what deals the most damage, Dado has an awesome video about that in which he gives you all the hard math numbers for damage and weapons and all that. The man's insane at that sort of stuff. What I'm going to do is break down each encounter for the raid and what weapons work well in what encounters. To clarify though, this is not a raid encounter guide. This is merely what weapons you should have for each. The first encounter is disabling crypt security. This encounter for the most part is crowd control and ad clear with a little bit of DPS along the way. I want to focus on the DPS portion of the encounter since no one should be ever doing crowd control by themselves during this part, and anything you probably use on an everyday basis will work fine. The DPS phase for this encounter has the team shooting at 6 fuses that are placed in the center of the 2 rooms. Because of how this encounter works, you have to hit them all one at a time in a specific order. If you hit the wrong one, then it's a wipe. With that in mind, we aren't going to be using weapons that don't have a controlled explosion, meaning some rocket launchers are out of the question. Perfect example is Warcliffe Coil. To add to that, the fuses that we shoot don't have a crit spot and can't have divinity used on it. That doesn't mean it's going to be hard though. You're going to want to use any high burst DPS weapon you have or just something that hits pretty hard. The weapons to use for this encounter are going to be Xenophage, 4th Horseman, 1K Voices, Sweet Business, Thermal Erosion, 7th Seraph Saw, or any heavy grenade launcher. Yes, you can complete this encounter if you don't have any of those, but those weapons tend to put out a lot of damage in a little bit of time, and since you should be having at least one other person with you dealing damage, it shouldn't take much. If you don't have any of these, or you brought the wrong gun, then just shoot the fuses with whatever you have. You should get it done, it'll just take a few extra phases. As a final note too, there are overload captains that spawn in both rooms, so make sure you have something with overload rounds or something that deals with overload to stun them so they don't become a problem. The next encounter is the infamous Atrax the Fallen Exo. For this encounter, your weapon selection for damage is pretty limited and straightforward. You'll want a sword. To be specific, you want the new exotic sword, the Lament. For the amount of time you have to deal damage to this woman, Lament as of right now is the highest DPS your team can possibly do. If you don't happen to have a Lament, you can use Fallen Guillotine that has Whirlwind Blade and Relentless Strikes. If you don't have the traits for that sword, still use Guillotine anyway. Vortex frame swords still deal the highest overall DPS out of all the sword frames currently in the game. The only other thing you'll have to kill in this encounter is a group of servitors, so make sure you bring something that can take them down quickly, like a 1-2 punch shotgun, a good fusion rifle, or whatever can deal a considerable amount of damage to a servitor. Just make sure your power weapon is either one of those 2 swords. The next encounter, you have a lot more wiggle room. Because this isn't a boss encounter and there's no DPS phase, you can use almost anything that you want. During this whole encounter, the only thing you'll have to worry about are the sheer amount of enemies in the room and the overload captains that spawn as well. Everything else is just simply playing Destiny, so use what you like. Now for the final encounter. For this, we need big boss DPS, but don't cripple yourself by not having any weapons to defend yourself during the encounter. There's a few different options for dealing real heavy DPS and a combination of a few things that help. First things first though, to make sure your team has the easiest time and deals the most amount of damage possible, someone on your team is going to have Divinity. With Divinity, anyone who shoots its bubble deals 25% more damage, and that includes weapons that don't crit, like Xenophage. After you have your designated Divinity person, aka the Divinity bitch, now we look at what's viable for damage currently. There's 4 exotics that stand out: Xenophage, Anarchy, Whisper of the Worm, and Cloud Strike. Now the weakest of those options is Whisper, because if you happen to miss a crit either because your Divinity runner has to reload or you just miss a shot because you slip, you have to wait until Whispered Breathing procs again and it eats up a lot of your DPS time. Anarchy is a pretty good and safe option if you pair it with slug shotguns. What some members of my raid team do is plug 2 Anarchy shots into the floaty boy, switch to a slug shotgun, unload the entire mag, and swap back over, plug 2 more Anarchy shots into him, then repeat the process. Depending on what traits you have for the slugs, you can output a ton of damage in a very short amount of time with ease. Not only that, but people knowing how to do the hot swap method helps a lot too. However, if you don't have slug shotguns and still want to use Anarchy, you can use a sniper rifle with triple tap or 4 times the charm and Vorpal weapon or high impact reserves. The 2 snipers that come to mind for me are Trophy Hunter and the Ikelos sniper rifle. If you have either one of those snipers with those traits rolled on it, then have at it, they work just as well. The 2 foolproof methods for damage are Xenophage and Cloud Strike. Xenophage has been one of the better options for damage against the previous raid bosses for Garden, and it held that standing for months now. Not only that, but with Beyond Light dropping, it makes defeating the final boss needed to unlock Xeno an absolute joke, so there has never been a better time to try and get that gun. Cloud Strike happens to be the hero that no one thought it could be because of the crit damage from the lightning storm that can be dealt when teamed up with Divinity. So not only do you get bonus crit damage on your precision shots, but also gain bonus damage on every little bit of lightning that hits your target. Because of that, Cloud Strike has so far been the safest option for anyone doing this encounter for the first time, and since getting the gun is a matter of perseverance and grind, it's not that difficult of a grab. The last thing I want to tell you is that all of the weapons and options I give you per encounter are the ones that work well as of this video being made. You never know what'll happen in a few months, so if you're watching this video a year from now, please be aware. We never know if fusion rifles may get some sort of stupid buff in the future, which makes Sleeper viable again, so you just never know. Thank you everybody for watching, I really do appreciate it. If you like what you saw, please be sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you want to see more. And if you like live content, I stream every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over on Twitch. You'll probably catch us running through the crypt. It's been non-stop since the thing came out. Anyway, thank you all once again for watching. I'll see you all next time. Remember, keep your heads up and be kind to each other. Bye now.